fucking shit pisses me off. If you don't really pay attention to the news, and if you've just been scrolling through social media, Facebook, what have you, you might be on some level aware that some college professor out there was suspended because she wore, like, a hand job on her head or something. I really hate the way that this article is being reported, specifically the way that it's being titled. You have the fucking Chicago Tribune here, says, Wheaton College suspends Christian professor who wore a hijab. New York Times says, Wheaton College professor is put on leave after remarks supporting Muslims, which really makes it sound like some sort of fucking Islamophobic, racist kind of thing. And it's not. Professor Larisha Hawkins decided to wear the hijab as a show of support to Muslim women as, you know, Islamophobic sentiment is on the rise in the wake of the shootings, and God, Donald Trump's not fucking helping matters, is he, with his brilliant ideas? But what they took issue with was something that she said when she announced her intention to do this on Facebook. They took issue with her status update, which reads, I stand in religious solidarity with Muslims, because they, like me, a Christian, are people of the book. And as Pope Francis stated last week, we worship the same God. Now, this is not a direct quote of her status update. I'm reading this from the fucking infuriating Chicago Tribune article, but that is what they took issue with. It was religious. Oh, by the way, Wheaton College is not... it's not a public, it's not a secular institution. It's a evangelical Protestant. So that means that they actually do have the authority to do that shit. The thing that Wheaton College took issue with was not the hijab. They could care less. What they had a problem with was her phrasing. It implied that Islam and Christianity are kind of the same thing, and they're not. To use an analogy that incorporates things that I care about much more than those, that would kind of be like saying that Star Wars and Star Trek are essentially the same thing. If I were in charge of a school devoted to Star Wars and one of the professors at Star Wars College wanted to wear a Starfleet uniform in a show of solidarity with Star Trek fans who have been discriminated against, I would think that that's a noble gesture. I would think that was wonderful. But if that person made a statement on social media claiming that Star Trek fans are our fellow followers of the Force, I would have a huge problem with that, because that's unfaithful to the mission of my institution. And it's also just factually incorrect. Or at least incorrect in my framework of space wizards and fantasy bullshit, not in a framework of real-life events that actually happened. Like, you know, a virgin giving birth to a little boy who can walk on water and raise the dead. In another situation, or in another kind of institution, this wouldn't be a valid reason to suspend somebody. But in a religious institution, like Star Wars College or Wheaton College, it all boils down to whether or not her statements are congruent with her superiors' interpretation of their own religion. And while the texts really, honestly do bear some similarity to each other between the Quran and the Bible, it's the differences that gives each of those religions their unique identity. For example, Islam recognizes Jesus as a prophet, yes, but not as the Son of God, which Christianity does. You can't be a Muslim if you believe that Jesus was the Messiah, and you can't be a Christian if you don't. Now, parallels between the two are always nice, cute things to find, but this crosses into the realm of actual conflation. And even if your intention is noble, even if you're actually correct, implying that the two religions are at their core the same basic thing deeply insults the beliefs of both Christianity and Islam. Which I am more than happy to do, because the differences between these two religions deal as much in reality as two kids who brought different editions of the Pokemon rulebook to recess, and now they can't decide how their card game should go. Now, yes, I do believe that the college was wrong in what they did, but the specific way in which they are wrong doesn't really betray any hypocrisy, and it's not inconsistent with the common practices of religious education. If anything, it's the logical and inevitable conclusion of it. And it is reactionary, and it is based on a negative view of Islam. But that negative perception is rooted in the one thing that all religions have in common concerning people of religious faiths different than their own. Condescension. Every single religion is the one true religion, and doesn't matter if it's Christians, pagans, Jews, Hindus, Muslims, they all believe that they have the only answers to life's greatest mysteries. So altruistic, benevolent interactions between these faiths are necessarily patronizing. To that end, if she had made the same statement about Judaism instead of about Islam, the school would have, or at least should have by their own warped values, reacted in exactly the same way. That's just their duty as a Christian institution. The problem isn't that they did anything unexpected or contradictory to their religious values. The problem is those religious values themselves. A devoutly religious person is barely anything more than a cog in a machine, carrying out a program in reaction to the world around them. And that program can breed hatred with such subtlety that the individual will never be able to detect it within themselves because of the moral authority granted to them by their own faith. It's really depressing to see these posts and these links and to see people reacting to this by saying, oh, how Christian of them. How can a Christian do something like this? Because this kind of behavior is actually very Christian. It's deeply Christian. And Christian values fully support the behavior of Wheaton College. Now, my values don't. Loving and compassionate values don't. What they did was wrong. But the reasons why it's wrong are just going to look like reasons why it was fair and just when you look at them through the lens of Christian superiority. In a secular institution, this would be way out of bounds. But in Wheaton College, it's totally normal. Now, the problem that I have with the titles I'm seeing for this story is that it's misdirecting our anger. It's taking our attention away from the real problem and making it look like it's some sort of thoughtless, uninformed, racist, and specifically Islamophobic thing. And it's not. It's not. The real villain of this story is just religious education, plain and simple. I'm out. Always wanted to do that. Shit, I hit my tripod.